Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're going to continue our Learn to Play look at the Japanese torpedo destroyers by taking a spin around Tier 6's Fubuki. For many, many years, Fubuki has been one of my favorite destroyers in the game. Back when she was the old Tier 8 destroyer in the line, she was absolutely amazing. Now, I was kind of garbage at destroyer play in that time. I had a lot to learn still. But the bottom line is that the ship offered an amazing amount of firepower and flexibility, all packed into a really, really nice little kind of package here. When they lowered her to Tier 6, they took away just a little bit of her firepower, which makes sense in the grand scheme of things. And so Fubuki still offers an amazing amount of tactical flexibility. She just offers less of it than she did in her old Tier 8 configuration, which again, because now she's Tier 6, makes total sense. There's a lot to like about this ship, and we're going to spend some time kind of building on the lessons that you learned at Mutsuki, talking more about them, and about why the triple launcher destroyer plays differently, in my opinion, than the double launcher ones do. In fact, I still feel like the triple launcher destroyers in the line, which is Fubuki, Akatsuki, and Shimakaze, will always remain superior to the double launcher ships in the line just because they offer just that much more tactical flexibility that you don't get when you've only got two launchers. Let's talk more about that as we go. In the meantime, we'll start, as we always do, with survivability. Now, Fubuki here, coming in at 15,000 HP. That is fully buffed with the captain. Let's have a peek here at her contemporaries. Her base HP, 12,900, is definitely on the low end. Just like Mutsuki, right? It was not worst in tier. That crown looks like it goes to a combination of Vesteris and Icarus. Actually, Farragut. Ooh, yeah, it is Farragut. Wow, Farragut is worst in tier. That's really bad. So you actually have more health than Farragut. Of course, that Farragut has more gunpowder than you do, so you don't want to run into him. But I am running the Survivability Expert skill on this captain, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute. You notice we had a conversation on Mutsuki about why I wasn't running it there, why I didn't feel like it was important. Most of those reasons, unfortunately, are gone here on Fubuki, so I am running Survivability Expert. I think you need the extra health. Now, the good news is that the gap between your health and the quote-unquote, best in tier guys, which remains some mixture of the French and the Germans, is not quite as big a gap as it felt like down at Tier 5, especially by the time you buff them up a little bit. With that said, Gade and Gepard, Ernst Gade and Gepard, the German and French destroyers in this tier, respectively, will bump up against nearly 19 or 20,000 hit points by the time they buff up. So that's going to feel... Oof, you're going to be pretty outclassed, right? You have a big hill to climb there, and so you've got to play those engagements very, very, very carefully. Brief look at the non-existent armor. So, yep, not surprising. You have no armor, nothing to get excited about here. You're going to get smacked around as soon as you get shot from pretty much anybody and anything. Maneuverability and concealment. Unfortunately, things here are not quite as rosy as they were down at Tier 5, right? We spent a lot of time at Tier 5's Mutsuki talking about all the amazing things and that your supremely good stealth afforded you the capability of doing. You lose pretty much most of that here by the time you get to Fubuki. Your surface detection, you see there on the right, full stealth rig. Basically, you are a 6-0 detection on the surface. That is not best in tier. It is not. It is close. It's close. Icarus outspots you just a little bit. Hatsuharu outspots you just a little bit. Who else? Maybe a couple of premiums outspot you just a little bit, but it is much closer, right? The typical Tier 6 destroyer has about a 6.1 detection on the surface. The worst one, hilariously, as we've talked about in other videos, is basically Farragut, right, with a 6.6. So she has the lowest health and the worst detection. Rip that ship. I still feel bad for her all the time. But Fubuki here has not quite best in tier detection, but it's just barely above average, right? That's one of the reasons that I take Survivability Expert, right? Fubuki is going to find herself in way more situations where she's going to get shot at than Mutsuki will. Period, paragraph, end of discussion. Part of that is because of her detection radius. Part of that is because of her matchmaking bracket. She will see Tier 8 ships. She will start to see radar. Ships like Belfast and Atlanta premiums at Tier 7 will creep in. Indianapolis, right? And then, of course, plenty of Tech Tree ships at Tier 8, which Fubuki will occasionally see. Baltimore, Cleveland, Edinburgh, Tallinn, all of these ships, Chapayev, all of these ships bring radar to the table. You will get shot at in this thing eventually. So, Survivability Expert, a much bigger skill for you because you lack the stealth. So that's unfortunate. Speed wise, are things any rosier? Unfortunately, no, not really. You're a 35 knot speed on the surface. Again, that is not worst in tier, but it is not significantly ahead of worst in tier. 36 knots is basically the tier average. There's quite a number of ships that are 38. Again, I'm looking at Nevny, Fushun, Aviere, Vasteris, all of those 38 knot base, and then they're going to, a lot of those guys will take speed flags. With a speed flag here, you're not quite to 37. So you have less detection and less speed than you did down at tier 5. You're going to find yourself getting shot at. So definitely you're going to have to keep that in mind. It's going to change how you build your captain, in my opinion. Ship still handles pretty well. 640 on the turning circle. Again, not best in tier. Probably a little below average, if I'm honest. But frankly, Fubuki handles pretty good for her speed and her size. So I don't think you'll have any problems handling the ship. So yeah, you'll be okay there. All right, artillery. Now, we talked a little bit about Mutsuki's main battery and how it was, LOL 2 guns. Don't ever use these unless you're desperate, trying to secure a kill on somebody who's basically almost dead. And I'm going to sing a similar song in Fubuki, but not quite the same one. Here's why. Fubuki's main battery moves up, right? Mutsuki had single-barreled 120mm guns. Fubuki now has 2 twin-barreled turrets. You're going to see a lot of these, so get used to them here. These are Japanese 127mm 50 caliber destroyer guns. These are really good guns. Most players discount Japanese destroyer guns because it's not something that they do well in general. But the Japanese destroyer guns go in a different direction than most traditional gunboats that people think about. When you think about a gunboat destroyer, you think about rate of fire, rate of fire, rate of fire. You're thinking about Forrest Sherman. You're thinking about Kleber with her reload booster popping, that kind of thing. The Japanese take a different tack. They look for the alpha damage. These Japanese 127mm high explosive shells hit like trains for their size. You don't fire them that fast. You see they're 7.5 seconds on the reload. But when you land them all, you will reliably land 3,000 to 4,000 damage salvos against opposing destroyers in a tier where most destroyers have around 13,000 to 14,000 health. That's huge. You will do horrible things to opposing destroyers with these guns. But if that guy has a higher rate of fire than you, you cannot stay in that gunfight very long. So with Fubuki, on Mutsuki, I basically was like, don't fire these guns. With Fubuki, I'm going to tell you, this is the tier you're going to learn. You need to learn when to fire them and when not to. When not to fire them is basically anytime early in a match, more or less. Again, unless you're trying to secure a kill on a very low health target that is going to go slip back into stealth, or that you're the only one that can spot, or that kind of thing. Yeah, open up and try to secure the kill. Get the ship off the board if that's what you can do it, okay? But if you've got teammates that can shoot that guy, and he's still going to be lit for 15 more seconds, man, give your teammates the opportunity to try and get that kill unless you just think they won't do it. And sometimes that's still the right call. But the bottom line is that you don't want to be courting gunfights with anybody, but you do want to be finishing them. There's a great line from Babylon 5 that I think really applies to Japanese destroyers, right? Never start a fight, but always finish one. And I think that really applies to these ships, right? Don't go start a gunfight. You probably don't want to be that guy unless the situation is very, very unique. You're hunting a destroyer who has less health than you late in the game, that kind of thing. But if somebody's chasing you and you have a health advantage, or you think you can kill that guy in 2 or 3 salvos, you finish him. Send him to the bottom because your guns are good enough to do it. Again, with the 11.5 kilometer range, I think there's a valid case to be made to avoid taking the range module. Again, with only 4 barrels, you're probably only really going to be using these against opposing destroyers. But I'll leave that up to you, right? Just like we talked about on Mutsuki, you've got a gun range module here. You could very, very easily just skip it and probably not miss anything because the ships you're going to be using it on, you probably won't need the range. So yeah, really good guns. You just got to kind of temper your expectations a little bit and learn when to use them. All right, now let's get to the good stuff. Mutsuki moves from 2 triple launchers to 3. I have 3 triple tube launchers here, all amidships, scattered in and around with her stacks and her midships superstructure. These are on a 70-something second reload. What's the base reload? Give me a minute. I think is it 80 seconds? 1 second. Survey says it is 76 seconds or so. And you can see there with a buff, we're down to a little over 68. So again, call it around 70 seconds. So a little slower reload than Mutsuki. But what do you get in exchange? Well, for starters, these torpedoes hit harder. Right? You see there an alpha of a little over 16,000 damage. That is not quite best in tier. The French, well, it's really Aigle. It's really the premium French destroyer here that kind of takes that category. But amongst the tech tree ships, your torpedoes basically are best in tier in terms of damage. And they are very, very near, if not, they're very, very close to best in tier in terms of range. The Italians, well, I'd say the Italians beat you out here, but it's really Leone, right? The premium Italian Tier 6 destroyer has 12-kilometer torpedoes. Aviere only has 10s. And you're there. You have 10s. And your torpedoes are way better than the Italian torpedoes. Way better. Better flood chance, better alpha, better speed. These are really, really good torpedoes. Now, earlier we were talking about the tactical flexibility of triple launchers. What do I mean when I say that? All right. Very commonly, when you're in an engagement, when you're trying to fire torpedoes at somebody, if you've only got 2 launchers, like you did down at Mutsuki, you're going to fire both, right? Let's say you're trying to land torpedoes on a battleship. You're going to want to put probably both racks in the water just because you're going to want to learn. You're going to want to try and catch, a wide enough swath of water that if he wanders into it, you're going to land at least one, hopefully more, of the torpedoes that you put into the water. But with 3 launchers, depending on the target, you probably don't need all 3, right? Or if you do, it gives you the opportunity to cover a larger volume, a larger cone of water. But what I like to do with again, the triple launcher ships, Fubuki, Shimakaze, Akatsuki, very commonly, I will fire 2 launchers and keep a third in reserve. Or I will try to position the ship such that I can fire different racks in different directions. Now, you can always technically do this, right? If you've only got 2 launchers and you want to fire one off the port side at one battleship and one off the starboard side at a different battleship, hey, you absolutely can. But having the third launcher gives you just an extra rack that you could use in these situations that you wouldn't ordinarily have. Let's say I can set myself up for a pretty good shot at a battleship and then maybe a luck shot at this cruiser over here. So the battleship gets 2 racks because I'm more likely to hit him, and I'll throw the third one at the cruiser. Or maybe sometimes I do this if there's still an enemy destroyer lurking around and he's in the vicinity and I know he's there, I'll hold that third rack for a potential destroyer engagement, right? Sometimes those torpedoes can make a big difference in a destroyer versus destroyer fight. Maybe he smokes up and camps in there and you can dump torpedoes into his face. Maybe you can use your torpedoes to force him to maneuver and get more guns on him, or while your teammates shoot him, or who knows. Having the third launcher just opens up a world of possible tactics to you that only having 2 launchers, which is most of the line, right, just doesn't afford you. And Fubuki is the first ship on the line that gets that third launcher. If you want my opinion, Fubuki is arguably the best ship to learn if you want to develop techniques for how to play the Tier 10 Japanese destroyer. In my mind, this is a great place to kind of practice those techniques because you've got 3 launchers. These torpedoes reload way faster. The matchmaking is a little better, but you can start to kind of train yourself. Okay, you get 2 launchers. I'm going to hold it. You're going to, 30 seconds later, you're going to get the next launcher. I'm going to shoot it over at a different target, that kind of thing. Here's another one. The other thing you can do with multiple launchers like this, I can stagger my launches more reliably. Let's say I've got a battleship pushing into me, right? I can throw him a rack, right? Now that rack is reloading. Wait 25 seconds. Throw him another rack. Wait 25 seconds. Throw him another rack. By the time 25 more seconds gone by, the first torpedo launcher has reloaded. Imagine the irritation of being a battleship and having a fresh wave of torpedoes coming in at you every 25 seconds. Fubuki can do that, right? And sooner or later, you're going to catch that guy. He's going to be in a turn. He's going to be trying to get his guns on target. He's going to be not thinking about you because he's looking at this juicy cruiser teammate of yours he wants to shoot, whatever. And eventually, you're going to hit him with one. He's going to repair it. And then 25 seconds later, here comes another rack. And one of those hits, you probably stick a flood on him, a full duration flood at that. The tactical options afforded by the extra launcher, I can't overstate it enough. It gives Fubuki, Akatsuki, and Shimakaze a completely different play style, in my opinion, than ships like Kagero and Yugamo, unless they take torpedo reload booster, which is a whole other conversation we'll be having later on. So yes, excellent torpedoes on this ship. Spend some time, get used to those triple launchers, and develop some tactics of your own. It's a ton of fun exploring that and figuring it out. Anti-aircraft fire, LOL, don't make me laugh, right? Same story here that we were singing down at Tier 5. The difference down Tier 5 actually had a long-range aura. Here at Tier 6, I don't even have that. Everything on this ship is short range. I've got a mix of 25 and 13 millimeter guns here. So I basically have 50 cal. These are 50 cals and these are 1-inch guns, right? So my AA bubble is good for shooting down fighters that try to spot me, and that's about it. Again, like we were talking about down at Tier 5, your saving grace is that your aerial detection is fairly low. So my recommendation, and I would say ordinarily turn your A off and leave it off. But here's the thing: in Fubuki, your aerial detection is 2.7 and your max AA range is 2.5. So by the time your guns would fire, the plane can already spot you. In Fubuki, you don't ever have to worry about this. Just leave your AA on. Just leave your AA on and be done with it, because the planes will spot you before your AA guns will ever shoot at them. So you might as well just leave it on. That way, if you're spotted, if your AA guns are going, you know there's a plane around. Works for me. We skipped over depth charges. Let's talk about this. Okay, so we extolled the virtues of this down at Tier 5 on Motsuki. Same thing here at Tier 6. You just get more bombs in a stick, right? 4,600 damage is very, 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 very good. Very strong anti-submarine warfare on this ship. But now you're putting down 6 bombs when you push the G key rather than only 4. Excellent. I love this. I love everything I just said, right? I love it, love it, love it. Fubuki, just like Mutsuki, just like all the other ships in the line, when afforded the opportunity to hunt a submarine at close range, will be able to reliably land damage and polish them off, unless the sub captain gets lucky with a down-the-throat shot or something, right? So yeah, excellent depth charges. Make use of them when you can. Have a look at upgrades and all the rest. Very, very similar build here to what I would recommend down on Motsuki. Man Armaments Mod 1 in slot 1. We're talking about engine room protection in slot 2. Again, if you want to take engine boost and you've got the coal, go for it. Perfectly valid choice here. Can't really go wrong. I recommend torpedo tubes here in slot 3. I still don't recommend turret traverse. Under no circumstances would I recommend AA. Aiming systems, again, no, you're just not going to get the value out of this that you really want. In slot 4, I have propulsion mod down. I think this is an excellent skill because, you're going to be toggling your throttle, speed up, slow down. Not a bad call. Steering gears is not going to get you a lot. Your rudder shift is already very, very good. The buff you're going to get out of steering gears for 1,000,000 credits is kind of crappy. Damage control, not amazing, right? I mean, you're going to repair just about any time you're on fire or flooding. You're going to repair it as quick as you can because you can't afford to take damage. Again, so this is not really all that good. The only other real option you've got here is this depth charges modification. Now, for Fubuki, this is actually maybe not a terrible pick. And here's my thought process, right? What this does, this depth charges modification, instead of giving you 2 sticks of 6 bombs, it gives you 4 sticks of 6 bombs on a 40-second reload. So it means once you have a submarine cornered, you'll have more depth charges immediately available to you to punish him. So if you don't think you're going to get much use out of the propulsion mod, or you keep running into submarines, and you want to murder them better, totally valid here in my mind, right? Because you've only got 6 bombs in the stick. Doubling the number of sticks you have available is worthwhile. You won't always get a lot of use out of this skill, but you will on occasion, and the times you want it, you'll be glad you had it. It's pretty much, I think, how that's going to go. We'll talk about flags real quick. Again, just like Mutsuki, I think the only real kind of big ones I would recommend the Flood Chance flags and Sierra Mike if you have them. If you have November Foxtrot, you can grab it. If you've got Juliet Charlie, I would do that too. India X-Ray, give or take, right? Like the extra fire chance on your HE shells is never a bad thing, but you're not going to use the guns enough that you're probably going to get a ton of value out of this flag. I would avoid everything else. You certainly don't want to be investing in your AA. The smoke generator action time, in my opinion, doesn't get you a whole lot. There's not a ton to like here, unless you're playing in a div and you plan on using the ship to smoke up your teammates. Okay, in that case, there's a case to be made here. And all of the damage control flags are really just not that useful for you, in my opinion. The ram flag, actually, now that I think about it, ramming flag might actually be kind of entertaining, right? Destroyers with ram flags can reliably murder submarines, without having to depth charge them. If you catch him on the surface or he tries to surface under you or something, you can actually get some value out of the ram flag. But ordinarily, I don't think you'll have that as a problem. We didn't talk about consumables on Mutsuki, but the reality is there's not much to talk about. You don't get any options here, right? You get damage control, smoke, and speed boost, and that's it. No choices. These are your consumables, and that's what you get. So use them wisely. Captain skills. Now, we talked about this earlier, right? We talked about building into survivability expert instead of, I won't say instead of, but building into Survivability Expert because you're going to spend more time getting shot at in Fubuki than you probably will in Mutsuki, and I still believe that that is the case. So back, the default 10-point captain skills that I recommend, we're talking about Preventive Maintenance, Last Stand, Survivability Expert, and Concealment Expert, I think is the right way to go here on Fubuki. After that, I think you definitely want to grab Fill the Tubes. I like Swift Fish because her torpedo speed starts out a little on the slow side, so a little bit of extra speed never hurt anybody. When you combine that with the torpedo modules, you can get your torpedoes up to, I think, 65 knots, right? They start at 59, so you get them up to 65, a little more reliable hit to hit, right? They go from, let's see, what does that drop them down to? 9.8 reaction time to an 8.9 reaction time. So by the time you combine those two skills, right, the 2-point commander skill here and the torpedo module that we looked at earlier, you can cut basically a second off your opponent's reaction time to your torpedoes. I think that's worthwhile. Turret traverse I have here, take it or leave it, right? Again, I think you'll spend more time using the guns on this ship than you would on Mutsuki, that you can justify this. But if you'd rather invest these points elsewhere, hey, you do you. I have RPF radio location on this ship. Again, I've been experimenting with it on these destroyers, so you'll see it in action here in a little bit. If you don't like this skill, if you want to ditch a couple of things, reshuffle around, maybe to grab Adrenaline Rush, because again, as we've been pointing out, you're going to get shot at, you're going to take damage. I think you'll get great value out of Adrenaline Rush. There's not a wrong answer here. For me, honestly, I've been enjoying radio location, but I'm not sure I'm going to keep it on this ship. So I think it's kind of just a personal preference here. I think these first 13 points, right? The preventive maintenance, everything over here on the right, and then grabbing Fill the Tubes. I think that those 13 points should be your baseline for Fubuki. And then after that, kind of mix and match to your taste. You like the torpedoes, grab Swift Fish, grab Liquidator, maybe grab Adrenaline Rush. You want a little more flexibility, a little more that sort of thing. Grab radio location, grab turret traverse, whatever works best for you. All right, let's go look at a little bit of sample gameplay, and then we'll come back here to say goodbye. See you guys in a minute. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our sample game in Tier 6 Japanese destroyer, Fubuki. Spawning here to the extreme south end of Shards. You can have a quick look down the team lineups and realize that immediately I am bottom tier. But that doesn't necessarily bother me, right? Fubuki is a capable enough ship that I just have to play smart, not get spotted at the wrong time, and I can probably still have a pretty good impact on this match. Looking over the opposing lineup, I see a whole bunch of things that I really, really hate. One is they have a radar, right? The opposing Cleveland, of course. They have planes. That's the opposing Chekalov. And they have three Tier 8 destroyers, all of which outspot me on the surface. So I have to be very, very careful this game about how I position, where I'm going to find myself. Otherwise, I can potentially earn a very, very quick ticket back to port. And we don't want that. So just got to keep my head on a swivel and play smart. I'm starting off here, moving in on the A cap with the friendly U-190 on my left. My thought process is I want to put at least 2 racks of torpedoes across the cap. Over there, kind of, that island, you see that island right off my bow on the other side of the cap. Very commonly, you'll see opposing destroyers set up over there so they have a place to run for cover, and they're right on the edge of the cap trying to cap. And so I'm going to dump 2 racks of torpedoes over in that direction, speculatively, just on the assumption that there might be an opposing destroyer wander over there that I can land a torpedo on. After that, I have to back off the cap. I do not want to push into this cap yet. You can see that we know where the opposing Cleveland is, so I potentially maybe could have pushed the cap, but I decided to let the 190 take the lead, except that the 190 submerged. Okay, I don't know what that's about, but that's what he did. And now, wait, what? Ladies and gentlemen, we're 2 minutes into this game, and look what's on the surface 12 kilometers in front of me. The opposing carrier is driving into the middle of the board. What is this guy doing? I don't know. One of the things that I think sometimes see Soviet carrier captains forget is how fast their hulls are. And it seems like this guy has completely forgotten and just started off and just pushed go and now is realizing he is in a world of crap. He's hung way out to dry, way out here in the middle of the map. I'm going to pause real briefly while we talk about this. He's realizing his mistake, right? He's slowing down and stopping. He's going to start reversing in a moment. But did you notice my RPF just switched to almost due astern of me? Now, we know it's not the Benson or the Isashio. You can look on the minimap and see that they're up at the C cap. We know it's not the Farragut, right? He's lurking around over there with the Amalfi on the top end of the B cap. So the only things it could be is it could be the Cossack, or it could be the submarine, the opposing U-190. I don't know yet. Right now, what I want to make sure and do is I want to make sure and sit here and make sure this carrier stays spotted for my team. I want them to put maximum punishment downrange on this guy. I don't want to give him any excuse to escape. Unfortunately, I've just been overflown by some spotter planes there, some fighters. So I do get lit. The opposing Cleveland takes a salvo at me, gets a little bit of chip damage, and then I'm able to get out. He doesn't have the range for his radar, so I'm just trying to get out of here, leave my AA ticking because I'm spotted anyway. I might as well. Right now, again, I'm trying to hang near mid. I want to make damn sure that this opposing Chkalov does not get away. We've got to make sure that this guy pays for his mistake. I do not want to give him the opportunity to go dark, and so if I stay where I am, he'll never get that opportunity. I'm taking some risks, right? Because I'm up here underneath all of these airplanes, I'm well spotted. So it's kind of like I'm up here, getting spotted doing this. He is going to take one of my torpedoes right on the belt and take a flood, but the flood isn't going to stick because carrier. However, just by chilling out here, I've contributed. Again, you're starting to see me rack up the spotting damage up there. We're getting good work in. He is still taking damage. Not flooding. He's not flooding, but he is taking damage. Skip bomb's going just south of me. I'm lit, and this is one of the mistakes that I make. I don't respect the Amalfi off to my north quite enough. He does get a good salvo into me, shave off about a third of my health right there with the SAP. So that kind of sucks. That's a mistake, right? That's just, hey, dummy, pay attention to your surroundings. But in the end, the team does snag the kill. So up north, the Benson bought it, and because the carrier made a bad positional error, he is now out of the game. I'm going to pick up B here. Team has picked up A. Team has picked up C. Things look really good right now, don't they? I'm still getting spotting damage on this Amalfi. My team is just murdering him because I'm able to spot him through his smoke because he fired. The RPF showing me seeming to struggle, right? It's toggling between the Amalfi and what is most likely the Farragut. So that tells me the Farragut is still over there. It looks like the Farragut might be trying to wrap around the south. I can't quite tell if he's trying to maybe come down the 4 line, maybe wrap around the south side of the island. It's hard to gauge. But right now, we're going to pick up B, and just like that, we have a huge lead on points, a 2-ship lead. Things feel really, really good, don't they? Now, the opposing Tirpitz is pushing into the A cap. The Cossack, you can see now, for some reason, is down on the J line. I don't know what that's about. Our U-190 is coming out of the cap as I'm trying to just keep eyes on this Cleveland, hoping that one of my battleships will take a pot shot at him. I'm trying to get set up for torpedo run on this Tirpitz, hoping he'll continue to wander in this direction. The New Mexico is not going to be with us very long. RPF telling me that whatever's closest to me is off to my starboard side as I'm lit. Wait, oh, ladies and gentlemen, what to my wondering eyes should appear but the opposing U-190. He had been at periscope depth. He has to go deep now to avoid that. But I think what's happened, yep, you can see there the icon over the U-190. The U-190's got him on the submarine surveillance skill. We know exactly where that guy is. And so it's time to go do what Fubuki can do in this situation, and that is murder the opposing submarine. The Tirpitz is going to get 2 racks, and I'm going to hold the 3rd in reserve because I don't expect those to land, but I want to put them out there in case he turns. I pop the speed boost to make sure that I can get on top of this U-190 quick as I can. The Tirpitz now has me lit on the surface, so I'm going to pay for this maneuver because I'm going to get his secondaries and a salvo. But for me, you see a huge chunk of my health, but it's worth it to eliminate this submarine. While we know where this guy is, we have to make sure and get him dead. And sure enough, the big old Japanese depth charges are more than up to the task. Just like that, Tier 8 ship notched into my belt. Feels good. Anytime you kill a higher tier ship from down tier, it's always a good feeling. And with submarines, it's genuinely not that hard to do. Now, we're 7 minutes in, and I've given up a ton of my health for that kill. But I've got a kill and a cap. And so for the moment, I'm thinking, okay, now what do I do? And I'm realizing the carrier needs help with this Cossack. Now, I'm going to pause this for a minute because I want you guys to understand this is a really, really bad idea. The only reason that this engagement is going to work is because the carrier is out here spamming planes on this guy because the carrier has to defend himself, doesn't he? I'm just barely outside my detection radius. This Cossack doesn't really know that I'm here just yet, but he's about to. And the carrier is keeping him lit. You see fighters overhead. Carrier just took off a huge chunk of his health with the skip bombs. And right there, I'm lit right as I go into smoke. The only reason I'm attempting this is because the carrier is basically guaranteed to keep this spotting for me. Under no circumstances should I be taking a gunfight with a Cossack, because this guy will just, he has double my barrel count. He's a faster reload than me. Like, this guy will absolutely murder me in a straight up gunfight. The only reason this works is because the planes are spotting him. I can sit in smoke and reliably land damage. But even then, you can see I'm struggling a bit. My guns just, I can't seem to get all my shells on target. Even that salvo, well, I did get all 4 on target, but that salvo felt a little weak for some reason. Only 1,400 damage. I'm like, wait, what? That salvo goes nowhere. There we go. Plane's coming back in to pick him up. Just got to keep at it. I've got plenty of time on the smoke. Still 40 seconds. Plenty of time. I only need a couple of shells here to land in the right place. This salvo irks me, right? I get one on his hull and the rest falls short. Like, what just happened there? So fine. I go back to aiming just a little too high intentionally, realizing that salvo should kill him, and it does. Another kill on a Tier VIII ship. As the opposing Tirpitz now pushing into mid, I'm going to turn and give him 2 racks. Again, how many times do I keep saying it? I'm going to get 2 racks, 2 racks. I like keeping that third one. Actually, okay, no, apologies. He's going to get all 3. I'm trying to cover the maximal amount of sea surface area. Now, let's talk about this maneuver, okay? I have 2 options here. I've got an island right off my port bow. You can look in the bottom right and see it on the minimap. I have 2 options. I can turn north and keep that island to my starboard side and push closer to the Tirpitz, but I don't know what maneuver that Tirpitz is going to make. For all I know, he's going to keep pushing. For all I know, he's going to keep pushing due east, and I don't want that. So I'm going to take the safer option, especially with this little health. We're going to hang to the south of this island to try to get around the back side of it. As it happens, the Tirpitz is going to turn more to the northeast in the north, and I could have stayed to this side of the island, but at the time I made this turn, I didn't know that. Now I'm sort of hoping, maybe futilely, but I'm sort of hoping that one of those torpedoes will also catch the Cleveland. But it looks like, yeah, Cleveland's well out of the torpedo range, and unfortunately, those torpedoes wouldn't have quite had the range to get to him anyway. Our Pobeda, our friendly carrier, going to take a run in on the Tirpitz as well with some torpedoes, as mine are now basically crawling directly up his stern. He does take a hit and a flood. Flood's going to tick for a bit. Tirpitz player is wisely... No, he doesn't. Okay. I thought he let that flood tick for a little bit, but he didn't. He went ahead and repaired it right away. Ballsy, because if the Pobeda lands some torps, he might get stuck with a flood, but that drop doesn't look all that great. I'm not sure he's going to land any of those. Tirpitz continuing to move to port to avoid those torpedoes. Cleveland is in the cap. U-190 on the surface down at A, trying to pick that cap up, and he will succeed here momentarily. Tirpitz pops the heel. And so now I'm in a position where my main goal, my main mission, is to spot and to harass this battleship with torpedoes, right? I don't really want to get in any gunfights. Even against the opposing Asashio, that is not a gunfight I'm excited about. What I'm really trying to do right now is keep this Cleveland lit. I don't want to give him the opportunity to hide for any reason. I want my team to know exactly where he is so they can keep murdering him. It looks like he's going to push around this island and kind of come out here and engage the Harikaze or the New Mexico. So I'm thinking about leaving him some torpedoes, but unfortunately, he's pushed the gas a little too hard. Also, unfortunately for me, he pops his radar, and I am inside his radar bubble. This is another mistake that I made here. Now, the Cleveland has no shots at me, right? I'm going to pause it real briefly. I was so focused on thinking, well, if I'm going to get radar, he doesn't have shots. His guns are looking the wrong way. And yeah, they are. But guess whose guns aren't looking the wrong way? The Tirpitz, right? Not to mention the Tirpitz's secondaries. So I'm going to turn away. I'm trying to just kind of, wheel out of this range, but I'm going to take, again, another solid hit, losing about half of my remaining health there to the Tirpitz, just waiting for this radar to expire or to get out of the range of it, and I finally managed to duck out of the radar bubble. Cleveland's in a point-blank fight basically with the New Mexico. That's not a fight he's likely to win. As we can see now that the Cleveland... I'm going to pause it real briefly. Do you see how the B cap is ticking over, but the Cleveland has been getting shot reliably, and the Farragut is not in the B cap? That tells me that I think the Sashio is up there. Those torpedoes are going out to the gap, hoping that maybe I might catch the Farragut in that gap. We'll see what he does. Turns out it was the Cleveland that had been capping, but now the Farragut has stepped in, and we'll have to see how he plays this engagement. The Isashio takes the New Mexico with him, so that tells me the Isashio is up here somewhere. Not sure where precisely, but it tells me he is on this side of the map. In fact, my RPF firmly pointing towards the Farragut. I know exactly where to look for him, and I suspect the Isashio is up here as well. Now, I don't play this next engagement as well as I could have, right? I'm trying to push in thinking, okay, if the Farragut clears this island, I'm going to be right here to harass him and shoot him. Not realizing that, hey, dummy, you don't have but 1,400 HP. You can't take a gunfight with the Farragut. You're a dead man. So, as it turns out, Farragut stops behind the island. The planes spot him, but I can't do anything with him. And so I'm kind of sitting here like, all right, can the planes force him from behind the island? Can I smoke? Can I repeat the same trick with the Cossack, which is what I'm trying to do here? I'm going to smoke while the planes spot him. He does take some skip bomb hits there. And ooh, it's the Isashio. Reload guns. He's 300 HP. Come on. Blind fire, please. Fingers crossed. Pretty please. Damn it. So, I know now that the Isashio is very low. That's a 1 salvo kill for me if I can wander to that guy. And he actually does outspot me, right? He's about a 5.5 detection, or 5.4 on the surface, whereas I'm 6 flat. So he can outspot me, but I'll see the Farragut coming. I can probably avoid that guy. Now, I don't know where these destroyers have wandered off to. I'm gonna speculatively launch 1 rack north, and I think, don't I launch 1 rack south? I think maybe I do, just in case. Maybe I hold them. But looking at the score, we have a 600+ point lead. There's no need for me to potentially push these guys, throw away my ship, give them more opportunities to win by giving them points. I'm just not going to do that. RPF's telling me they're still in the cap, so I'm going to back off. I'm going to beat feet, put some distance in here, and at the end of the day, there's really not going to be anything else interesting that happens in this match. I'm going to speed it up here. We'll speed through to the end. I think the U-190 does bag the kill on the Fuso. Do I speculatively throw these torpedoes? Nah, I don't think I do. I think I'm just kind of waiting. Yeah, I do speculatively throw some out there. I'm sort of waiting, seeing if I can spot one of these destroyers. I actually get a little aggressive here at the end, like maybe, but in the end, doesn't happen. Chapayev cleans up the York back up on the A-line, and that is the game. Never spot one of those guys again. They just kept running, I guess. So in the end, a nice little tidy game from bottom tier. Again, I managed to live the whole match. I took some bold risks there that probably could have cost me my ship, but I managed to hang on through it. So we got 2 kills, right? A Tier 8 destroyer and a Tier 8 submarine. That feels pretty amazing. Only 2 torpedo hits, but again, as we've talked about sometimes, we talked about in the Mutsuki video, like so much of what you're able to do in these ships is, you can finish targets with your guns. The torpedoes are area denial, steady damage, that kind of thing, and the depth charges. I've now crushed a submarine in each of these first 2 games, and that's something you're going to see me hopefully continue to do as we go up the line. Just a touch under 2,000 base XP from a bottom tier destroyer. That feels really good. I'm pretty happy with that result here. Over 400 XP above the Z-23, who was in second place. So 50,000 spotting damage. We basically got almost all of the U-1. We got a good chunk of the U-190. We finished up the Cossack. Big kills there. A couple of torpedo hits that contributed to the loss of these 2 ships from the enemy team. All in all, a nice little solid game in Fubuki. And again, showcasing that you don't have to have earth-shattering damage to have a good XP result in a game. What do you have to do? You have to probably a little bit of board control, right? If it's a domination game, you definitely want to try for a cap, but you don't ever want to trade your ship for a cap. That's a terrible trade, right? But spotting, looking for opportunities to hurt submarines, opportunistic shots with your guns, and then using your torpedoes as best you can often result in a great result even on low damage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there is our look at Tier 6 Japanese destroyer Fubuki. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. And as before with the Mutsuki game, Mutsuki video, guys, if you decide this inspires you to go play Fubuki or maybe go give it a try on your own and you have a particularly good game or a game you're really proud of, hey, drop me a line on Twitter or Twitch or Discord or something. Send me a replay, and maybe we'll start doing some after-action reports here as folks kind of explore and get a little better with these ships, okay? All right, you guys take care. Wash your hands. Be safe. I'll catch you next time.